There's been a lot of chatter about video game prices increasing, especially with the recent announcement of Mario Kart World for Nintendo Switch 2 being $80, which is clearly above what most people expected. Then the very next day, Meta announced its own VR version of Civilization 7 is going to cost $60 on MetaQuest 3. And then I saw some people who were pretty unhappy about Wanderer Fragments of Fate costing around $50 depending on your region. So I think now is a good time to discuss the current pricing of VR games and the price expectations of the consumer right now, because clearly these price expectations are much lower than flat screen games. I was around when Nintendo 64 launched back in 1996, and I remember Mario 64 and Turok being priced around £70, which is around $80, and this was pretty crazy at the time because games were normally priced around the $40-50 mark. But right now I would say most VR gamers expect to pay around $30 for most VR games, so it's a pretty bold move on Meta's part to price Civilization 7 at double what people are expecting to pay for a VR game. And I think the main issue is outside of the hardcore VR users and community. For most, VR is like a side hustle. It's a part-time bit of fun, and most games they still play on a flat screen, and therefore they have to factor in exactly what they are buying throughout the year, because flat gaming is having a great time right now and has been for quite some time. To counter this argument though, I would say that VR has had its fair share of great VR game releases over the last 6 to 12 months, such as Hitman on PSVR 2, Metro Awakening, Behemoth, Alien Rogue Incursion, Batman Arkham Shadow, and quite a few more. And a lot of these games were aimed at moving the needle for VR adoption. Some of these have highly followed and respected IPs attached to them, which most likely meant the devs doubled down on their investment. But I also doubt not many of these guys ever made a profit. So without big IPs attached to VR games, what seems to happen is all VR games are then automatically put into an indie games bracket, especially to the outside world, because some of these devs are simply unknown to everyone else outside of the VR community, and that in itself makes pricing of VR games particularly hard for developers. We're all constantly wanting more AAA games in VR, but I also see that people don't really want to pay top dollar for them, which puts all of this into a weird never-ending cycle which is only broken by funding from Meta or PlayStation with games like Batman and most recently Hitman. Now I don't know this for sure, but what if the new Hitman VR port was actually funded by PlayStation, which I 100% believe it was, and because of this funding they are only charging the $10 for the upgrade. But what if PlayStation didn't fund it? What if IOI really wanted to bring this back to VR and they were looking at having to release yet another version of World Assassination for around $60 or $70? Now the answer for me, at least after playing it, I would have said yes, people will pay $60 for this game. But if you look at the track record of VR games already struggling to make their investment back, let alone a profit, I doubt IOI would have ever took the risk to port to VR again. The main issue for VR games right now, at least from the traffic I see, is how can you justify $60 for a VR port of Civilization 7 on MetaQuest 3, but for only another $10 you could pick up a game like Doom the Dark Ages only a month later. Now I know these games are clearly very different, but cost is cost, and Doom is already most likely in a no-brainer category for FPS fans, especially if what I said is true, that VR is just a bit of fun for most people. This puts VR in a massively difficult spot, and it holds devs back from really throwing some serious cash at game development, with the fear that they will most likely never recover the cost and they could end up getting shut down or having to downsize like many other VR devs this year. I would argue a game like Wanderer Fragments of Fate, even with all its faults right now, offers around 15 hours of gameplay and it looks stunning. But I've already seen some of the conversations going on about the price, and I doubt the developers will ever get close to breaking even on their investment into this remaster. And what we're in now is a real chicken and egg scenario. Basically what I'm saying is I think we're at a weird moment in VR. Quest 3 only has a handful of games that actually make use of the headset's extra processing power, and devs still focus on a 5-year-old headset as the base of their development, leading to some brand new VR games almost looking old the moment you see them in 2025. And all the constant rumours of PSVR 2 dying since literally the day it started makes devs shy away from even considering porting a game, let alone investing in a brand new IP for VR. On top of all this, we have the headset wars, which are still going on. Even though I'm very lucky in this channel, everyone is quite respectful to one another, but still, I know that most people on PSVR 2 don't have a Quest, which means they haven't played a game like Batman. And I also know that people on Quest haven't got PSVR 2, so they haven't played a game like Hitman. It's a really tough spot, and I'm not sure what we can do to break away from it. Developers should be allowed to charge at least $50 for a game that's taken 2 years to develop, but so far there's been too many games that don't offer the quality or length of gameplay to justify this pricing. And when a developer does attempt it and is quite successful like Metro Awakening, They are met with either hate because the game was too expensive, or lackluster sales because no one was interested. Let me know your thoughts about all of this down in the comments. I really want to know what you guys think VR games should cost.